Maya Williams guided her 7-year-old daughter, Zora, down the narrow aisle of the airplane, her grip firm yet gentle on the little girl's hand. Zora, dressed in a bright yellow dress that seemed to radiate joy, clutched her beloved stuffed elephant, Ellie, against her chest. As they reached their assigned seats in row 14, Maya breathed a quiet sigh of relief. It had been a long morning of travel, and now, finally, they could settle in for the flight to New York, a trip that held deep personal significance. Maya had an important work presentation ahead, but more importantly, Zora was about to meet her great-grandfather, Jeremiah Williams, for the first time. Just as Maya stowed their carry-on bag in the overhead compartment and helped Zora get comfortable by the window, a flight attendant with bright blonde hair and an artificial smile approached them. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we need to make a seating adjustment," she said, her tone polite but firm. Maya's instincts immediately sharpened. Years of navigating corporate America as a black woman had taught her how to read between the lines. "Is there a problem with our seats?" she asked cautiously, glancing at her boarding pass again to confirm what she already knew: they had booked and paid for these seats in advance. "Not exactly," the flight attendant replied, lowering her voice slightly. "We have a family that needs to sit together, and we're hoping you and your daughter would be willing to move to row 27. Maya turned her head to see the family in question, a well-dressed white couple and their young son, who looked about Zora's age. She noticed the man's expensive watch, the woman's designer handbag, and the boy's private school uniform. More importantly, she saw that row 27 was at the back of the plane, near the restrooms, right in front of a pair of energetic toddlers who were already kicking the seats in front of them. She felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the same suffocating sensation she had experienced too many times before, being asked to step aside, to accommodate, to make herself smaller for someone else's comfort. She knew this wasn't just about seating. This was about something deeper, something uglier. "I specifically booked these seats so that my daughter and I could sit together," Maya said, keeping her voice steady. The flight attendant's polite mask barely concealed her growing impatience. "The other family would like to sit together as well," she said, as if Maya's request was somehow unreasonable. Maya's gaze didn't waver. "If they're in first class, why can't they move to other first-class seats closer to the lavatory?" she asked logically. The flight attendant's smile tightened. "Those seats are occupied by our premium customers," she said, the implication unmistakable. Zora, who had been quietly listening, tugged at Maya's sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, is this like what happened at the restaurant?" Her innocent question, loud enough for those nearby to hear, sent a ripple of discomfort through the air. Maya clenched her jaw, remembering that evening all too well, when they had a reservation but were still seated near the kitchen while other, later-arriving diners were given better tables. Maya took a steadying breath. She had spent years preparing Zora for the realities of the world, but she had also taught her daughter to stand her ground. And so, meeting the flight attendant's gaze, Maya spoke clearly. "I'm sorry, but we paid for these seats, and my daughter and I will be staying right here." The flight attendant's polite expression wavered, just for a fraction of a second, before she forced it back into place. But Maya saw it, that flicker of irritation, the barely concealed impatience lurking beneath the surface. The woman's lips pressed into a thin line, her shoulders tensing ever so slightly, as if she were weighing whether to push the issue further. Around them, a subtle shift in the air signaled that other passengers had taken notice. Some cast quick, sidelong glances before looking away, eager to avoid involvement, while others openly watched, their curiosity piqued by the quiet standoff. Maya could feel Zora's small body pressed against her side, the warmth of her daughter grounding her in the moment. The little girl's fingers clutched Ellie, her well-loved stuffed elephant, with a grip that betrayed her anxiety. She was holding her breath, waiting, watching. And in that instant, Maya knew this wasn't just about airplane seats. It wasn't just about convenience or travel policies. This was about something far deeper, something Zora would carry with her long after this flight had landed. The flight attendant inhaled slowly, a carefully measured breath, her eyes darting toward the front of the plane as if searching for support from another crew member. But none came. She was alone in this moment, facing a mother who wasn't going to back down. Finally, she released a small, clipped sigh, adjusting her posture into something more rigid, more distant. "I understand," she said, though her tone made it clear she didn't. The words were mechanical, forced, a means to an end rather than an expression of true understanding. Enjoy your flight. And with that, she turned on her heel and walked away, her polished shoes clicking softly against the narrow aisle. The tension in the cabin didn't dissipate immediately, it hung in the air for a moment longer, a quiet hum of unresolved energy. But Maya didn't care. She had one. More importantly, Zora had seen her stand her ground. Zora turned her wide, dark eyes up to her mother, searching her face with an expression of awe and relief. "Mommy," she whispered, as if saying it too loudly might undo the moment, "we didn't have to move." Maya met her gaze, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and quiet determination. She reached out, brushing her fingers through Zora's soft curls, reassuring, grounding. "That's right, baby," she murmured, her voice steady. "We didn't." A slow smile spread across Zora's face, her little shoulders finally relaxing. And then, as if the weight of the moment had simply melted away, she turned toward the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. Outside, the vast runway stretched before them, the early morning light casting a soft glow over the planes preparing for takeoff. Maya exhaled deeply, rolling her shoulders back, allowing herself to settle into her seat at last. The confrontation was over, but she knew the lesson would linger. For Zora, this moment had meant something. It had shown her that they had a right to be here, that they didn't have to shrink themselves, that they belonged. And that, more than anything, was what mattered most. The plane slowly began to move, rolling down the runway with a steady, deliberate pace. At first, it was just a gentle vibration beneath them, but soon, the engines roared to life, filling the cabin with a deep, powerful hum. Zora sat upright in her seat, her small hands pressed firmly against the cold airplane window, her breath leaving faint, foggy marks on the glass. Outside, the airport buildings, the baggage carts, and the people on the tarmac blurred as the plane picked up speed. Her heart pounded against her ribs, a mix of excitement and nervousness swirling inside her. She had never flown before, never felt the sensation of leaving the ground. Would it be scary? Would it make her stomach flip the way it did on the big swings at the playground? She clutched Ellie, her well-loved stuffed elephant, pulling it closer to her chest as if it could somehow anchor her to something familiar. Maya, sitting beside her, noticed the way Zora's fingers tightened around Ellie's worn fabric. She reached over and gently took her daughter's free hand, giving it a comforting squeeze. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice soft, calm, a quiet anchor in the midst of all the noise and motion. Zora hesitated for a moment, her gaze flickering between her mother's reassuring smile and the outside world rushing past. She gave a small, hesitant nod. "Will it feel scary?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the engines. Maya smiled, stroking the back of Zora's hand with her thumb. "Maybe a little, at first," she admitted, her tone warm and soothing. "But then it'll feel like we're flying. Like birds in the sky." Zora considered this, tilting her head as if trying to picture herself soaring through the air, weightless and free. The idea made her stomach flutter, but in a way that was more exciting than frightening. She let out a small breath, her grip on Ellie loosening just a little. And then it happened. The nose of the plane lifted, and for a brief, dizzying moment, they were caught in between, no longer on the ground, but not quite in the air yet. The shift sent a strange, weightless sensation through Zora's tiny body, making her gasp and clutch her mother's arm instinctively. Maya laughed softly, squeezing Zora's hand. "It's okay, baby," she murmured. The plane climbed higher, the pressure changing, their ears popping as they ascended into the sky. Zora's wide eyes stayed fixed on the view outside. The buildings, the roads, and the tiny cars below shrank rapidly, turning into mere dots as they drifted further and further away from the world below. A layer of fluffy white clouds stretched out before them, glowing golden under the sunlight. Zora let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. And then, slowly, a smile spread across her face, a look of pure wonder. "We're flying, Mommy," she whispered, her voice filled with awe, as if she could hardly believe it herself. Maya looked at her daughter, taking in the way her dark eyes sparkled with excitement, how the fear that had been there moments ago had melted into something else, something lighter. She leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of Zora's head. "Yes, baby," she murmured, her heart swelling. "We're flying." For the first time in a long while, Maya allowed herself to relax. She let her shoulders ease, let the tension of the past few days, the past few years, slip away, just for now. They were leaving everything behind, heading toward something new. The unknown still lay ahead, but as she held her daughter close and watched the sky stretch endlessly before them, Maya felt something stir inside her. Hope! As the plane leveled out, Zora finally loosened her grip on her mother's arm, though her small fingers lingered for a moment as if reluctant to fully let go. Her heart, which had been pounding fiercely during takeoff, began to settle into a steady rhythm. The initial jolt of fear that had tightened her chest was slowly giving way to something new, something lighter, something filled with wonder. She turned back toward the window, pressing her warm forehead against the cool glass. Her breath left a faint mist as she exhaled, her dark eyes widening at the sight before her. Below them, the world had vanished, swallowed by an endless sea of clouds. They stretched as far as she could see, fluffy and white, glowing with a golden hue from the afternoon sun. It looked like the softest, most inviting blanket in the world, and for a fleeting moment, Zora imagined running across it, sinking into its pillowy depths, feeling its warmth wrap around her like a dream. Maya watched her daughter in silence, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. It was moments like this, quiet, unguarded moments, that made all the difficult choices worth it. She reached out and gently tucked a loose curl behind Zora's ear, her fingertips brushing against the soft skin of her cheek. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she murmured. Zora nodded without looking away from the window, completely mesmerized. "It looks so soft," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Then she turned to her mother, her brows drawing together in curiosity. "Mommy, where do the clouds go at night?" Maya chuckled softly, tilting her head as she considered the question. It was the kind of innocent wonder only a child could possess, something so simple yet so profound. "They don't really go anywhere," she answered, her voice gentle and soothing. "They just blend into the night sky. Sometimes they hide in the darkness, and sometimes they catch the moonlight, turning silver instead of white." Zora blinked, absorbing her mother's words. She turned back to the window, as if trying to imagine the clouds shifting and changing with the night, floating silently through the sky. After a moment, she let out a tiny yawn, her excitement finally beginning to fade into exhaustion. The rush of emotions, the nervousness, the thrill, the awe, had left her small body feeling heavy. Maya noticed the way Zora's eyelids fluttered, her grip on Ellie the elephant loosening just slightly. Smiling, she reached for the thin airplane blanket, unfolding it with careful hands and draping it over her daughter's lap. "Close your eyes, sweetheart," she murmured, brushing her fingers through Zora's curls. "Try to get some rest. We still have a long journey ahead." Zora hesitated for a second, her tiny fingers twitching as if reluctant to let sleep take her. But the gentle hum of the plane, the rhythmic vibration beneath her, and the warmth of her mother's embrace were too comforting to resist. She gave in, nestling closer to Maya, her cheek resting against her mother's arm. Within moments, her breathing slowed, deep and steady, as sleep wrapped around her like the clouds outside. Maya exhaled quietly, allowing herself to relax for the first time since they had boarded. She rested her chin lightly atop Zora's head, feeling the softness of her curls against her skin. Her gaze drifted back to the clouds, her mind floating with them, drifting between memories of the past and fragile hopes for the future. They were leaving so much behind. The struggles, the heartbreaks, the weight of everything that had held them down for far too long. Ahead of them lay uncertainty, a path unwritten, full of unknowns. But for the first time in a long time, Maya allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something better waiting for them. As Zora's small body rose and fell in peaceful slumber, Maya let her eyes close as well, her arms wrapped protectively around her daughter. Beyond the clouds, beyond the vast stretch of sky, a new beginning was waiting. And for the first time in forever, Maya felt like they were finally on their way. As the plane soared steadily through the vast night sky, Maya sat in quiet contemplation, her body tense despite the comforting hum of the engines. The dim cabin lights flickered softly, casting a golden glow over the rows of passengers lost in their own worlds, some sleeping, others staring blankly at their screens, and a few murmuring in hushed voices. The air felt thick with exhaustion and unspoken emotions, yet Maya remained still, her hands folded tightly in her lap as she gazed out the window into the endless darkness beyond. Beside her, Zora lay curled up, her small body nestled into Maya's side, her soft breaths rhythmic and peaceful. Maya's fingers instinctively reached for her daughter's delicate hand, tracing the tiny fingers with a tenderness that made her chest ache. The warmth of Zora's skin against hers was reassuring, grounding her in the present, reminding her why they were here, why she had chosen to leave everything behind. A lump formed in her throat as she thought of the life they had abandoned, the memories now left in the past like footprints washed away by the tide. Maya exhaled slowly, pressing her forehead against the cool glass of the window. Outside, the sky stretched on infinitely, a sea of inky black speckled with faint stars, each one distant and unreachable. The world below was hidden beneath thick layers of clouds, as if even the earth itself had turned away, unwilling to bear witness to the uncertainty that lay ahead. A sense of loneliness crept into her heart, heavy and suffocating. She had never felt more untethered, more adrift in the unknown. And yet, as she looked at her sleeping daughter, she felt something else stirring beneath the fear, something fragile yet persistent. Hope? It was faint, like the first light of dawn barely touching the horizon, but it was there. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. Maybe, somewhere beyond the darkness, there was a place where they could finally feel safe, where they could rebuild, where Zora could grow up free from the weight of the past. Maya reached down, pulling the blanket up to cover Zora more snugly, her fingers brushing over the soft fabric as she whispered a silent promise to herself, to her daughter. No matter what lay ahead, no matter how uncertain the future seemed, she would not let fear dictate their story. She had taken the first step into the unknown, and she would keep moving forward, one breath, one heartbeat at a time. Closing her eyes, Maya let out a slow, steady breath, allowing the exhaustion to take hold. The steady hum of the plane, the gentle warmth of her daughter beside her, and the distant twinkle of the stars outside lulled her into a quiet surrender. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to believe, however cautiously, that perhaps, just perhaps, they were flying towards something better.